program from ISKCON Hillsborough, but hosted remotely. We are very thankful for you to be joining us. And we will be presenting a very wonderful topic today. It's called Disaster to Divinity. And before we present this session here from Srimad Bhagavatam, we will recite the invocation prayers, and prior to that, we will sing Jai Radha Madhav. So I'll request Radhika Priya to kindly sing Jai Radha Madhav prayers, and then we will begin the session. Thank you. Jai श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। So thank you all once again for joining. We will start with the invocation prayers and then we will dive into the subject matter for today. So if you know the prayers, please chant all together. नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासां ततो जायमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। शृण्वतां स्वतथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनं हृदयन्तस्थो हि भद्राणि विधुनोति शिरत्सताम्। जय जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवत महापुराण की जय। So once again we welcome everyone and the topic for today is disaster to divinity. Now the reason for choosing this topic is because we are seeing so many disasters occurring all around Oregon, Washington, California, and not only here in this part of the world, but everywhere, wherever you can think of. In this material creation, there is some sort of disaster or a problem occurring, whether it could be with one's own personal life or anything in general. So this topic will aim to outlay a few things as to how during this time of disaster we all can come together and seek refuge in something which is very higher to all of us, the divinity that we have within us, and in that way be at peace and able to handle all these situations very well. While looking at that, we will go through Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam, talking about Dhruv Maharaj, a great personality, and then the learning lessons from the disaster that he faced in his life and what we can learn from that and apply in our lives, right? So that is the basic overall high level of what we will be looking into this session. So we will dive now into this session and talk about the 9 stages of bhakti. So there is a beautiful verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which says, Adhau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sango Tha Bhajana Kriya Tato Anartha Nivriti Syat Tatho Nishtaru Chistataha Atha Shaktis Tatho Bhavas Tataha Prema Bhyo Dunchati Sadhakanam Ayam Premnaha Pradhurbhave Bhavet Kramaha. So this particular verse from the most beautiful Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is from 1.4.15 to 1.4.16. And in this, it says that in the beginning there must be faith. So we begin with the stage of Shraddha, which entails some faith, some level of faith through which we come in association, sadhu sangha. And once we come in association, we approach these pure devotees of the Lord. And thereafter, at that point in time, one seeks shelter and is initiated into the process of chanting and hearing by a spiritual master. And then we execute the regulative principles under the bona fide orders of the spiritual master. So that's the performance of devotional service, bhajan kriya. When we do that, then what happens? We are fixed in our service and we are freed from unwanted habits. and finally become fixed in devotional service. Those unwanted habits are anartha nivritti, when we decrease the attachments that are unwanted of this material world in order to progress in bhakti. And thereafter, one develops taste and attachment after being fixed in one's bhakti. So that's the nishtha stage where one is fixed and steady. The taste comes when one continues to hanker. Asakti means there's attachment to the process of chanting and hearing. And this is the way of sadhana bhakti, the execution of devotional service according to the regulative principles of freedom. So once we do that, then there is a stage of bhava, which is the seeding of prema. It's also called ecstatic stage or a stage of rati. So in that, the devotee experiences some level of ecstasy and is able to intensify the emotions further. And gradually the emotions intensify and there is awakening of love, which is the stage of prema, final stage over there in that definition. And this is the gradual development of love for the devotee who is interested in Krishna consciousness. Now, once we go through these stages, it's not something artificial. It's a blessing by Krishna. We have to put in our part. Our effort needs to be there. And then the blessings come from Krishna with which we can approach him. He gives us the vision, the proper way in which he wants us to see him. He will unveil himself according to the level of devotion that we bring to him. So this is the basic tenet in which the 9 stages of bhakti occurs in everyone's life. Most of us are struggling in the anartha nivritti stage, trying to get rid of all these unwanted attachments that we have. Now with that, we will go into Srimad Bhagavatam and see how this applies to one of the great personalities that is revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam, and his name is Dhruv Maharaj. So Dhruv Maharaj, this particular pastime is very, very important because Dhruv Maharaj is one of those personalities that we all know, we have been hearing about, and has shown extreme determination, has gone through all these steps, the 9 stages of bhakti, to arrive at the point of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that Dhruv Maharaj, who was the son of a king, Uttanpad, he, out of his love for the father, Uttanpad, wanted to sit on the lap of the father. But Uttanpad had, background, had 2 wives, Suniti and Suruchi, and Suruchi was the stepmother of Dhruva. So Suruchi says to Dhruva, "My dear child, you do not deserve to sit on the throne or on the lap of a king. Why? Surely you are also the son of the king, but because you did not take your birth from my womb, you are not qualified to sit on your father's lap." Oh my God, this is very powerful for a little kid to hear. So then she further continues, "My dear child, you are unaware that you were born not of my womb, but of another woman. Therefore, you should know that your attempt is doomed to failure. You are trying to fulfill a desire which is impossible to fulfill. If you at all desire to rise to the throne of the king, then you have to undergo severe austerities. First of all, you must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and then when you are favored by him because of such worship, you shall have to take your next birth from my womb." So this is how the little boy Dhruva is getting to hear from his stepmother. And he is having an emotional disaster. So the topic of today is disaster to divinity. He starts with a very, very emotional disaster in his life wherein he cannot fulfill a simple wish, right, of getting some love from his father by sitting on his lap. And in that way, this particular story unfolds from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto. Next, is a beautiful shloka here, wherein it is stated that the little boy Dhruva, he goes to his mother and he talks to his mother, Suniti. And the mother is advising. She's saying, my dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. So therefore, if you desire at all to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother Uttama, then give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the advice from a mother who really cares for the son. Oftentimes we see mothers stand and fight for their children. They will go and fight, but without any fundamental basis. The basis has to be of the Shastra. So Suruchi, even though she spoke harshly, but whatever she spoke was the truth. And the mother of Dhruva agreed that yes, the point was that only Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, can help mitigate this situation. No one else could. That was the point that the biological mother was trying to relay. So Suniti's stand was that the desire development of little Dhruva had to happen so that the child is able to pursue his devotional life very well. And so she fans the spark further, and that is demonstrated in Srimad Bhagavatam through that verse. So next, Dhruva decides to leave for the forest so that based on the instructions of the mother, he is able to pursue the goal after which he wants to go to the forest. So in that particular scenario, he goes to the forest, and Narad Rishi, who is seeing all this happening, he approaches, and in 4.8.32, he approaches Dhruva and he tries to test Dhruva. So there is some discrimination by guidance and service to Dhruva that he gives. So what he says is, for this reason, my dear boy, you should not endeavor for this. What is the reason? It's very difficult. You are still a kid. You won't be successful. It will not be successful. It is better for you to go home. When you are grown up, by the mercy of the Lord, you will get a chance for these mystic performances. At that time, you may execute this function. So that is the test for Dhruv Maharaj, where Narad Muni, he comes and he says, go now, come back later, and then execute the same instruction. You are not at your full age of maturity. He's trying to distinguish and discriminate and guide at the same time. So he is trying to test out whether the disciple is ready or not. That is the readiness stage which the spiritual master tests. And then he furthermore says one should try to keep himself satisfied in any condition of life, whether distress or happiness, which is offered by the supreme will. A person who endures in this way is able to cross over the darkness of nescience very easily. So we should be satisfied. So he's saying, be satisfied now and go home. Don't be thinking too much about your desire. And then Dhruv Maharaj, so what he does is, he says, my dear Lord, I'm very impudent for not accepting your instructions. But this is not my fault. It is due to my having born in a Kshatriya family. So he's saying, my stepmother has pierced my heart with harsh words. And the value, never mind how valuable your instructions are, it does not stand in my heart at this point in time. O learned Brahmana, he says that I want to occupy the position more exalted than any yet achieved within the three worlds by anyone, even by my fathers and grandfathers. If you will oblige, kindly advise me of an honest path to follow by which I can achieve the goal of my life. So this is Dhruv Maharaj, his honesty He's very determined. He really wants to achieve something. Now, through this we can relate, right? We all are having some hankerings in life. We would want to achieve so many things. Are we as determined as Dhruva? So his determination was in the right path though. Our determination could be in different paths which are averse to bhakti also. So after seeing the determination by Dhruv Maharaj, then he continues and Narad Muni's compassionate advice comes. Dhruv Maharaj continues, any person who desires the fruits of four principles, religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end liberation, should engage himself in the devotion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Dhruv Maharaj continues to discuss, and this is what Narad Muni says, right? So here is an expert spiritual master who is advising the disciple or a student how one should pursue, whom should one go to for bhakti. And he says, my dear boy, I therefore wish all good fortune for you. So Dhruv Maharaj has passed his test. And now the spiritual master, Narad Muni, is blessing him. You should go to the bank of Yamuna, where there is a virtuous forest named Madhuvan, and be purified over there. Just by going there, one draws nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead who always lives there. So this is the instruction that the Supreme Personality of Godhead's representative called Narad Muni gives to Dhruv Maharaj. And this is a very compassionate advice that you go. So mercy is one of the things that these acharyas always have on everyone in the world. And out of causeless mercy, he gives these blessings that you go to Madhuvan, and over there on the bank of Yamuna, execute your devotional service. And he gives a mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is the 12-syllable mantra for worshipping Lord Krishna. One should install the physical forms of the Lord. And with the chanting of the mantra, one should offer flowers and fruits and other varieties of foodstuffs, exactly according to the rules and regulations prescribed by the authorities. But this should be done in consideration of time, place, and attendant conveniences and inconveniences. So today we see there is forest fire occurring. Everyone is going through suffering. Those who are in proximity of the fire, their houses are burnt, or they are displaced, or they are having to go through smoky conditions outside, air quality index being the lowest and hazardous so far in various places. So going to the forest doing tapasya is not an option right now in this kind of situation. So for that very purpose, the same rules apply. One should worship Krishna, but one can do wherever and whenever one can. And if possible, in one's home, one should have a small altar and temple so that one can worship very properly the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the instructions of bona fide authorities like Narad Muni here. So this is called discipline, where the little Dhruva, as you can see in the picture, goes and in discipline starts to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way fixed his mind without diversion to anything else upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when Dhruv Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble. So this is the power of devotion of Dhruv Maharaj. So much so that his devotion reached its heights. So we're talking about the 9 stages of bhakti, right? Initially, he was going through Shraddha, some little faith. Then it grew furthermore into association. Then he got the mercy, anartha nivriti, and so forth, as we had explained earlier. And now he's in the stage of bhava when it's about to fructify further to become prema, right? And at that point in time, because of the energy created in devotional service, the three worlds began to tremble. But Dhruva's dedication was so much so that even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he had to appear, because his desire was such that he wanted to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the instructions of the spiritual master. And in doing so, what happened was his desire that he had in his heart, which was a material desire to begin with, transformed into spiritual desire. So we'll see here what the Bhagavatam says. Dhruv Maharaj continued, "O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly. As the waves of a river constantly flow, such transcendental devotees are completely situated in an uncontaminated state of life. By the process of devotional service, I shall surely be able to cross the nascent ocean of material existence, which is filled with the waves of blazing fire-like dangers. It will be very easy for me, for I am becoming mad to hear about your transcendental qualities and pastimes which are externally existent." Now, Dhruva's prayers, he's just repeating the prayers of the previous acharyas. So we don't manufacture our own prayers, right? We repeat. So when we are going to the section of learning lessons, we will see how prayers are done at 4 different levels. And we will come to that later and we'll talk about that briefly. So Dhruva's prayers are very potent. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, and Dhruva is favored by the Lord. The Lord, with his conch shell in the hand, touches Dhruva, and he is offering such wonderful prayers at that point in time, and gets the darshan, or the vision of the Lord face to face. So he came with a materialistic notion to the forest to do worship, and then in the process of doing the worship, that changed. The idea that he had in the beginning completely got purified through the process of devotional service. And now Dhruva is becoming very enlightened, and he returns home in a very enlightened way. So this is the divine destination of Dhruva, that he approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead with so much love in his heart, and then the mercy of the Lord was on him. So now this is the story. Conclusion. Now what we'll do is we'll summarize this, and we'll have learning lessons from this. If you would want to read more from Srimad Bhagavatam, you will see after returning home how Dhruva took up to the throne when his father Uttanapad retired from his position as a king. And then later, there are other pastimes as well of Dhruva, of the Yakshas. You can read on your own, which is beyond the scope of this presentation. So here, coming back and summarizing, it began with a disaster for Dhruv Maharaj, emotional disaster like many of us would face in our lives at various instances. There was a doubt planted in his heart by his stepmother that he could not sit on the throne, and that doubt was further clarified by his mother. And the solution in how to overcome that doubt was to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone could fix this whole problem. There was nobody else who could do anything about it. So the desire for knowledge on how this can be done, Dhruva had that, and he went to the forest, and over there, Srila Narad Muni, who's seeing this little Dhruva coming to the forest to do devotional service, he tests Dhruv Maharaj. So there is discrimination by service. Dhruv Maharaj is tested thoroughly by the spiritual master, and then he passes the test with flying colors. He decides to continue to do his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order for him to get the clarifications of the questions that were in his mind. And after that, with determination, Dhruva continued to listen to the spiritual master, who gave him instructions. There is a lesson about discipline. So disciple is the one who is ready to be disciplined. So the spiritual master gave him instructions to go to the forest, Madhuvan, near the banks of Yamuna, and then start worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead using the instructions and mantras that he gave. And that discipline was carried forward by Dhruv Maharaj. He goes and with dedication, he starts to chant the mantras, recite the mantras. And then what happened was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, became very pleased with Dhruva's dedication. And he appears. And then Dhruva gets his darshan. Then the Supreme Lord touches his conch shell to the head of Dhruva. Dhruva Maharaj is able to then recite wonderful shlokas because he was with, he ran out of words when he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead showered utmost mercy. And by his touch, the great Vaishnav devotee, Dhruv Maharaj, he started to recite beautiful verses. And that's how he reached divinity. So he started with disaster, he finished with divinity. And after becoming enlightened in the path of devotional service, all his material contaminations melted away. Unwanted desires went away from his heart, and he went back to the kingdom where his mother, father, stepbrother, stepmother were. And over there, he was well received. Everyone spoke of his glories. And he became very, very dear to the Supreme Lord and was being loved very much from there on. So this is his story, and it's also our story. Let's see how we can apply this to our life. So we'll talk about the 9 Ds now. The first is the disaster. So material world is meant to frustrate attempts of jivas. We know that, right? Everything that we do, we get frustrated as far as it's a material thing that we undertake in this material world, right? We get a job, we work in it, there is frustrations involved in that. We build a house, there is frustrations involved in that because there's so much endeavor, there's so much effort, finance, and so forth that needs to be into that. Any material relationships also, we get frustrated out of that, right? And now we have this forest fire. So you see that image, it's burning all over. We get frustrated because of the fumes that are generated. Houses getting burned, people suffering in various ways. And then not only that, coronavirus, which is a pandemic and which was hurting the economy so well, right? So much it was hurting the economy. Now that is also present. So it's multiple things occurring. Unemployment, all these things are so much frustrating the lives of the jivas, which is what we are, the souls in this material world. And on our own, we cannot solve this. It's like a firefly trying to show its power to the sun. The sun is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna Surya Saman Maya Haya Andhakar, Jaha Krishna Taha Nahi Maya Adhikar. So Krishna is like that sun, and Maya is that darkness. If we are in Maya, if we are in darkness, then we cannot really see the power of the sun. So we have to come out of that darkness through the power of the sun, through Srimad Bhagavatam, to the mercy of devotees, and see things in perspective. For forest fire, we need that rainfall to come. Only then that forest fire can be turned off, can go off. Now, can be turned down. Now, in this particular situation, we are just looking up at the sky and waiting for the forest to get some rain. But the good news is probably next week we are going to get some rain, right? Now, seeing all this happening, we are dependent on the mercy of Krishna, whether through the form of rain, whether through his involvement in our lives, whether through his engagement, through devotees' mercy in our lives. Whatever the form be, we are all dependent on Krishna in any kind of a disastrous situation. Emotional disaster, personal, financial, whatever be it, we need Krishna. So that's the first D. Second is doubt. Now, here in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is an inquiry about why suffering is present. The purpose of life is defined in the destination and goal of life. There is a beautiful verse, 3.23.56. It says, Nehayat karma dharmya nehayat karma dharmaya na virgaya kalpate na viragaya kalpate na tirtha pad sevyai jivan api mrityo hi sah. Now, meaning of this is anyone whose work, karma, does not elevate him to religious life, whose religious life or dharma does not lead to renunciation or vairagya, whose renunciation does not lead to devotional service to Supreme Lord is counted among the living dead. Now, this is very, very powerful. And I invite people who would like to read more in that to go to the verse and see. And now, here the doubt is created in our own lives whether our work or karma is in the direction of elevating ourselves to religious life or not, whether our religious life is leading us towards renunciation from material sense gratification or not, and whether the renunciation that we are having from material sense gratification is leading us to the path of bhakti or not. If that is not happening, then we are not on the right path. So this is the doubt. We should start thinking and aligning ourselves, our lives, with what the Supreme Lord has said. And that is very, very important. And that will lead us to have some desire. When we go in front of deities, the Lord glances at us and arouses spiritual desires in our heart. And then with his enchanting smile, he maintains those desires. So this can be felt and experienced at personal individual level. And Acharyas have described the beauty of Shyam Sundar, Shri Radharaman. The desires are connected to Krishna and those can liberate us. Those desires connected to Krishna can liberate us, certainly. Because if we have the desire to worship Krishna, to take the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then just by mere darshan, through that desire, we will be purified. So my humble appeal to all those who are on this call is to kindly have an altar at your respective homes if you don't have it yet. Worship Krishna. Have a picture or whatever form of the deity you have, Lakshmi Narsimha, Vamana, Varaha, whatever Vishnu Tattva forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead you can worship, please do so. And chant the holy name, engage. That desire of being engaged in the bhakti of Lord Shri Krishna is very, very important because that desire is all purifying. Just like Dhruv Maharaj was purified, his heart was completely purified of the material desire because he engaged in a spiritual process. We too can be recipients of the mercy of the Supreme Lord if we engage ourselves by having a desire to serve Krishna. That is extremely important for us. Now, the fourth D that we'll talk about is discrimination by service. Another example is King Prataprudra was always under the guidance of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the guru or a spiritual master, and he was instructing King Prataprudra, who was a king. Who are we? We are simple, insignificant jivas, right? 1/10,000 of the tip of the hair. So if we also seek for spiritual guidance from a bona fide spiritual master, that will pave our way for success. So we should be able to discriminate by seeing all these scriptural examples. Everywhere you see the value of a guru or spiritual master is being highlighted so much so that that is the way one should approach. Mahajano yena gata sapantha, right? Following the footsteps of the great Mahajanas. And then there's a little analogy of a pilot I want to share. So if the pilot one day decides not to listen to the control tower, there is people at the control tower that say whether whether it's time for landing, whether the runway is clear. And if the pilot decides not to listen to them, also if the pilot decides not to utilize the equipment that is present in the cockpit, as you can see, if the pilot decides one day I'll just fly the plane myself, my own intelligence, and I'll fly it however I want and reach my destination without all these help that is provided. Can anyone tell me what the fate of the pilot would be? Would he be able to arrive at that destination? The airspace is so vast. If you are in a plane, you can see it's a vast airspace. You don't really know which direction. There is no signboard saying this is this road, this is that road. There's no roads there. It's all open air. In that scenario, if the pilot decides to fly without any help of a guide, then the pilot is prone to disaster, and all those people in that plane with the pilot, all of them are going to certainly face a great disaster, even death. Such is a fate of people in this material world without proper spiritual guidance. When they're trying to do things on their own, without knowing whether that is justified by scriptures or not. Therefore, we need some discrimination in seeing the evidence from the revealed scriptures, the evidence from the spiritual guides on how one should pursue devotional service under bona fide guidance. That is discrimination by service. The fifth D is determination. Now, Maya attacks more strongly when a soul decides to surrender. This is very, very applicable to many people. In the devotee community, they have experienced this and they have revealed. So I thought I'll just put it there. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 1148, there is a very beautiful discussion between Maharaj Pratap Rudra and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tara pratigna more na karibe darshana, more pratigya taha vina chhadiva jivana. Maharaj Pratap Rudra continues, if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is determined not to see me, then I am determined to give up my life if I do not see him. This is the determination. Even if the Lord chooses to discard me, my determination is I'll give up my life, because what is the value of this life without not being engaged in service of Krishna? That's the type of determination that these great souls like Maharaj Pratap Rudra had. Furthermore, it says, Jadi sei Mahaprabhura napai kripa dhana, kiba rajya kiba deha saba akarana. If I do not receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, my body, my mind, my kingdom are certainly useless. This is the determination of great Vaishnavas, that I really want to serve Krishna. The purpose of my life is to please Krishna. If I cannot do that, what is the use of whatever I have got over time? My bank balance, my house, my children, my kids, family, my possessions. What is the value of all that? The prestige that I have, I am this, I am that. What is the value? If I cannot have the mercy of Krishna, if I cannot engage in devotional service, that is the determination that these great sages and souls had in the past. And we should strive for that. So that is the fifth D, that teaches us how we should be determined. Now the sixth one is discipline. We follow the rules, regulative principles in our life. What are those? No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. Furthermore, we are doing association of devotees, reading Srila Prabhupada's books and books of bona fide acharyas. And then chanting the holy name of the Lord. We are doing that. And then taking deity, darshan and prasadam. Diet has to be very controlled, and whatever we are doing has to be offered. Whatever we are consuming has to be offered. Actions also have to be offered to the Supreme Lord, right? In a college, when we go, we follow a set of rules. If we are in a college and we say that, I will not attend any lesson, any class I will not attend. This is how I want to do in my college, and I'll just go and do exam also. I can flank the exam, not participate in the exam also, and I'll get a pass. Is that possible? Answer is no, absolutely not. We will fail in our exam if we do not participate and follow the rules. Even participation itself is not all in all. If you are participating in the exam but you are cheating, having another copy with you with answers written on it and trying to copy, you are saying, I'm participating in the exam, what's the problem? The examination officer will come, sees your copy and tell you, you are disqualified from the exam. Why? It's not an open book exam. So we have to follow the rules. And if you are in college, one of the rules is to take part in those seminars, be present for the classes. If you are not present, what will you understand? And then after you have understood, then you apply. What will you apply if you have not understood anything? Huh? So that knowledge has to be realized knowledge. That knowledge that Gyan has to become Vigyan, and that happens through the process of application after learning. There is Srinivas Acharya who has written the Sri Shad Goswami Ashtakam, and there's a very, very beautiful verse. It says, Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibhi Kalavashani Krito Nidrahara Vihara Kadi Vijito Chatyanta Dinau Chayo Radha Krishna Guna Smriter Madhurima Nandena Sammohito Vande Rupa Sanatanau Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who were engaged in chanting the holy names of the Lord and bowing down a scheduled measurement. In this way, they utilized their valuable lives, and in executing these devotional activities, they concurred over eating and sleeping, and were always meek and humble, enchanted by remembering the transcendental qualities of the Lord. This is discipline. They were chanting the names of Lord. They were offering obeisances unto the Lord. They were executing their devotional service. And they were practicing sadhana bhakti in such a way that they were conquering over their sleeping and eating habits, and were very meek and humble. We should also aspire for service in that way. That is a discipline we should all try to have in our life. We cannot imitate them, but at least we can follow in their footsteps as much as we can based on our individual circumstances. So that's the 6th D. The 7th is dedication, which Dhruv Maharaj had. It said that divine slavery is preferred over mundane mastery. If we become masters in a mundane world, I am the master, I am controlling this, that, master over everything. That mastery of the mundane affairs would go away at some point in time. It will definitely go away when we die. So divine slavery is better. Jiver Sarupa Hoy Krishner Nitya Das. We are eternal servants of Krishna. So being slaves of Krishna and working for Krishna is much preferred over being materially captured by these mundane affairs. And we have to keep the false ego aside, because that will fan the spark. Oh, you know this, you are the leadership here, you are this, that. All these things are upadhis. Sarv upadhir vinirmuktam tat partena nirmalam. One has to keep these upadhis outside of one's process of execution of devotional service. And how that can happen is by mercy of the Supreme Lord on an individual, and one's own attempt as well to keep engaging. The process itself is purifying, self-purifying process. Keep engaging. So from the stage where one is doing offenses to the holy name, one will rise above that a little bit. So Namaprad to Namabhas. And then once one comes to Namabhas or clearing stage, then Shuddhanam is the next step. And by Krishna's grace, we get that. Once we get Shuddhanam, all these anarthas and everything else that is there that were troublesome to the heart, we will not see those things anymore in ourselves. Purity is the force, as Srila Prabhupada used to say. Books are the basis. Preaching is the essence. Purity is the force. So that is the 7th D. Now, 8th is divine destination. In the case of Dhruv Maharaj, he achieved his divine destination, seeing the Lord, going back home completely empowered and purified. Faith is completely needing to be fixed in the Supreme Lord and the process with which we approach the Lord. Once we do that, we'll feel happiness in all situations, and distaste for material sense gratification or enjoyment will come. Gyan and Vairagya will automatically arise in one's life who's doing bhakti. Bhakti Devi has two children, Gyan and Vairagya. Knowledge and detachment will be there through devotional service. So this is extremely important, and the way in which we apply this in our life is to keep walking on the path. The destination is divine. Keep walking, keep studying the scriptures, keep doing service, executing devotional service in any situation, whether it's a lockdown, whether we are at homes, whether we are opening up and going out for preaching. In any situation and circumstance, we should remain steady. We should remain focused. Vivasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana. One should have that single focused attention. Now we'll see here how practical application of devotional service, how this can be practically applied, and the levels of sadhana. So there is a personal level of sadhana seva. In this, there is no institutionalized guidance. That institutionalized guidance means that an institution, whatever be it, has set up the ways in which one should think, act, and behave and render devotional service. On a personal level, everyone has their personal relationship with Krishna in their own sweet ways. And we know through the explanations of Shriman Chaitanya Charan Prabhu that these in the explanations of rasa that he was presenting, the 5 primary rasas are existing, and then there are secondary rasas. So the personal level of sadhana, one can have any of these relationships that are in the rasa form with the Supreme Lord, and that nobody dictates. There is no institutionalized framework around that. It is a personal one-to-one relationship, and everyone will have a different experience. Even chanting the same mantra, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, everyone gets a different level of realization. One person's realization would be different than another one because of their own purity and relationship with which they are offering that service. Now, once one is undertaking the personal level of sadhana well, then the support mechanism in a localized seva comes, which is at the point in time when we support with enthusiasm the services in our own respective homes. So we have other devotees living in the homes, or maybe they are not yet devotees, but whatever the circumstance be, we have to work with them. It's a localized seva. You have to cook for the family, you have to work with the family, serve them, because they are all, and serve them in bringing them to Krishna and worshipping Krishna. That's the other level of seva, asides the personal level, which is the localized level of seva. Then comes, once we have had a very good family which is engaged in devotional service, a devoted family, then we come to community level of seva. So we take this seva to the next level and work in a community. And examples can include temples, schools, etc., farmlands, etc., various areas where we go and extend our service to the community. Prasadam distribution, book distribution, various forms of that community-based seva exist. That is the other level of seva. Outside of that is the global level of seva, or global community coming together and creating a movement of bhakti, which is what Srila Prabhupada has created. But all these personal, localized, community level of seva is included in the global space of Srila Prabhupada. It's a very structured approach. The institutionalized way in which we serve when we are with the community and global community at large is very structured. And for ISKCON, we have the governing body commission, that sets the direction, and then the local authorities execute on those directions that is globally given. So we all come together, pitch in that, and serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is how practically this is helping us out, all of us in our daily lives. Now with that, a very, very important thing to do is to always worship Krishna and never forget Krishna. Always do things such that we are pleasing Krishna. And when we are pleasing Krishna, then the most difficult things in our lives become easy. And we become recipients of the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna. So with that, on this very auspicious occasion of Ekadashi, I would wish to thank each and every one of you for being present here on this call, and also ask everyone to humbly pray for every individual in the community that is suffering on this very day, going through so many trials and tribulations. And at the same time, if possible, extend a hand in helping people out, because there is suffering everywhere. And in the process, remembering the Lord, getting purified, and finally rendering service that is acceptable and pleasing to the Lord. In this way, I would wish you a happy Ekadashi and say, Shri Shri Nitai Sachinandan Dev Bhagwan ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premande Hari Bol. If there is any questions, it's already 12:30.
So Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanyavad Pranam Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for a very, very wonderful lecture, Prabhuji. I have a question, Prabhuji. Can I ask you? It's a quick question.
Yes, please.
Prabhuji, actually, very nice narration, Prabhuji. So, see, Dhruva Maharaj has a very, very strong material desire. It's not a small desire. Material means not small thing. It's a very, very big thing, because he wanted to get the kingdom, which is greater than his great grandfather, Swayambhu Manu. So he has such an intense material desire, but the final outcome was like, he could be able to attain the Supreme Lord actually. So I'm really sometimes get confused, because see, Prabhuji, is it because of his the total, because of his strong determination that he should surrender to the Supreme Lord completely, even for its material desire? That is the reason why he has attained the final very good destination of attaining Sri Krishna's lotus feet. What actually it exactly, Prabhuji? I mean, is it his determination? Because if we really want to have something material, we will be material. Our thinking will be until only material only, Prabhuji. So is it his complete surrender, strong determination to, can you please explain, Prabhuji?
Certainly. Thank you for that wonderful question, Mataji. So we spoke about the 9 stages of bhakti. He started with some faith. There was a question asked, a doubt created in his mind. So there is a combination of factors. It's not one thing. You cannot just say this is all in all just because of his faith he had achieved, because he had a strong desire. But there is a combination of things that led him to be properly situated in the right position, which was at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, executing bhakti. One of the things, so let me go back to that slide so that we can again look at that. We spoke about the 9 Ds. I'll go back to that again and summarize that, and that will help you to understand better. Here you go. So there was a disaster that arose in his heart. That disaster, like you said, was his desire to have something bigger than that of his father. And Bhagavatam explains the intensity with which his heart was burning. So he had an emotional disaster. And if you go along through these 9 Ds that I have captured here, you'll see that the desire for knowledge is there, which is right, but it's pointed in the direction of somebody who can give you that knowledge. So there is a spiritual involvement of a bona fide spiritual master in the scenario of Dhruv Maharaj. If the guidance is not there, we talked about the pilot flying the plane. If there is no guidance, there is no equipment in the cockpit. If there is no person on the control tower for that day that is guiding the pilot to land, to fly the flight, and to reach the destination, we don't think the pilot can make it on his own, because in that airspace, when he's seeing from that 50,000 foot view, everything is seemingly appearing to the pilot to be the same. It's all open air space.
But still, Prabhuji, Narada Muni tried to initially,
Test him.
tried to stop him, right? He has
Exactly. That's the duty of the spiritual master, to check on the disciple. We all have tests in our life, and tests are meant to make us stronger, right? These extreme situations that we feel or we go through in our lives are meant only to make us stronger if we take it with that positive spirit of mind. If we become shattered and we are not properly situated in bhakti, then those tests that come our way will end up in us having being demoralized. We will be lost. We need guidance. We need support mechanism, and that support mechanism and guidance always comes through spiritual process. If we try to find a material solution to a material problem, there will continue to be further material problems. Because when we fix one material problem, another one will arise. Now, spiritual solution is the answer to all material problems. This has been seen through the examples of many devotees, including Dhruv Maharaj. He had a material situation he wanted to achieve. His spiritual master comes and first of all, he tests the disciple. Go home now, come back later. So that is like postponing the bhakti. Don't do it today, do when you are grown up 10 years from now, 15 years from now. No, we don't have time. Dhruv Maharaj is very determined in a positive way. He wants to achieve. So the impetus of his determination, even though it's a material impetus, but once it's engaged in a spiritual process, the process is self-purifying, and the material situation that he had in his mind changed and became spiritualized later on. So never mind. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusha param. Whether you have a material desire, whether you have a spiritual desire, whether you're full of any kind of desire, you should only approach yajita purusha param. You should approach Krishna. For Krishna only can help. There is no other help. If you try to go out and seek help and refuge in material things, cannot be possible. You cannot come out of the situation. It can make the situation even worse. So there is a combination of things there. His discipline was also very great. His determination was there. He's as in Dhruv Maharaj's. And through the determination, through the discipline, his dedication was there, and then the destination was achieved. And through that, he reached divinity.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hey, Krishna. So we are at 12:37 now. Narottam Vilas Prabhu, do we have time, or is it time for Aarti now?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, this is Jai Sachin Das. We're having technical issue, but we can go to Aarti Kirtan. That's okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the wonderful, inspiring class. With clear.
Thank you very much.
Rohinikishor Das Prabhu ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So I think Anirudh is signed up for today's Kirtan. So Narottam Vilas Prabhu, can you transfer the video to Anirudh and then turn on his video or audio, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Anirudh, please go ahead and start chanting. We were having an issue with the temple video for Mayapur TV. So in the meanwhile, I think you can go ahead and start chanting. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Krishna Hare
Thank you, Anirudh. Shrikar, I think you are signed up for Singhadev prayers.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
You want to start nursing the day prayer?
Sure, Prabhuji. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladaladaine. Praladaladaine. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Silatankana kalaye. Silatankana kalaye. Ito Narasimha, Parato Narasimha. Ito Narasimha, Parato Narasimha. Ito yamita to Narasimha. Ito yamita to Narasimha. Vahi Narasimha, Hriday Narasimha. Vahi Narasimha, Hriday Narasimha. Narasimhamadhim Sharanam Prapaje. Narasimhamadhim Sharanam Prapaje. Tava Kara Kamalavade Naka Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanabhinga Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Tavakar Kamalavare Naka Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanabhinga Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narasimhadev 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 Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya 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 Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Shri Narasimhadev Bhagwan ki jai Bhattacharya mein Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai Harinam Sankirtan ki jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare
Thank you very much, Shrika, for singing such nice kirtan, Arati. I'm driving, so am I audible?